Sherlock Holmes is one of the most famous fictional characters in the world, with more iterations across page, stage and screen than almost any other. But in this video, it's a different Sherlock showdown. I'm putting Lego up against Pantasy to try and deduce which of these sets is most worth your money. Now, this video is not sponsored, although Pantasy did send me their sets for free, thank you Pantasy, and Lego did not. I had to buy it. Ain't that swell? Now, this is a little bit like comparing apples with oranges, as these sets are so vastly different in their size and how they look. But unless you want all three, which should you go for? Well, we will begin with Lego's version, as that will be the benchmark for our comparisons. And from this front-on angle, I do really like the way it looks. Obviously, you can fold it round together so that it turns into book Nook form, and then you can place it between your Sherlock Holmes novels and have Baker Street neatly snuggled in the middle there. Of course, being a book Nook, you're only going to display it this way if you actually have a bookshelf to put it on. Now, looking at it from other angles, we have this silhouette of Sherlock on the front, which is a really nice touch. I don't particularly like it when it's zoomed close in, but when we pull back a bit, then those studs add a bit of extra texture to it, and it does look quite good. So definitely better from further away. However, again, whether you display it like that, I'm not so sure. Obviously, the top doesn't look too pretty, but you're never going to see it from that angle. And around the other side from the silhouette, it is just plain, no decoration. As for the actual back, that's not very pretty, but then it's not designed to be looked at from that angle, so you can't really expect more from it. Coming back round to the front, if we open it up again, I'll share with you what I like and dislike about the detailings on the front. Now, the first good thing is that if you don't actually want this as a book Nook, there's no reason that you can't just have it opened up like this. There's some really super detailing on all of the sides, and it does just look good as a small display piece. Starting over on the right, we've of course got 221B Baker Street, where I've positioned our little cellar of newspapers along with Sherlock and Watson. We'll have a look at those minifigs in a minute. Now, you can access the interior of Sherlock and Watson's apartment, which is just up here, which does have the nice little detailing of the balcony on the outside. You can sort of glimpse the inside through the windows, but then when you actually open that up, you get a proper look within. So there's little features such as Sherlock's violin waiting to be played, much to Watson's chagrin, the nice fireplace, and of course the map of London with all the different clues for Sherlock's various cases on there. Closing that back up. Then in the middle, which is given main focus of attention, you've got number 222, the door of which can be opened to reveal Moriarty hiding behind it. Now, this is a nice little feature, but I do find it quite stiff to move. So you have to hold the whole model in place to make sure it doesn't twist around as well. As for the left-hand side, it has some nice details, such as the lantern and also the little flower pots on the front. And then just twisting around the side, there's also some pretty nice textures to the street sign too. I really like the look of the front of the elementary bookshop, especially the display window, although I'm not sure that I like it actually being called the elementary bookshop. It's a little bit on the nose for me. However, that is a sticker, so if you didn't want it, you could always leave it off. And then you can open the door, and then you get to see some extra little details on the inside. Now, when you have it closed up in book Nook form, I do think that you still get quite a nice view of all the different detailing to the inside of the street. They have done that well. Although I do have one big bugbear, and that's the way that Baker Street has been printed. They should have had these as two longer pieces. Trying to cram street into the same size space as Baker means that it's offset and just looks really tackily done. I think that is a big fail, especially when it's something that could have so easily been rectified. Now, for our official Lego minifigures, we'll begin with Sherlock, of course, and I really like the printing on his torso. That is very nicely done. It is a shame that we don't have any on the legs at all, or of course on the arms, but that torso printing really is great. And the magnifying glass, if you get it in the right angle, does just about work, so it's a good little accessory to have. Now, if we spin him round, we also have his cape. Beneath that, you have the printing of the waistcoat on his back, which is also really nice. And of course, his deerstalker cap, which is beautifully moulded and suits the character very well. Of course, because of it, he only has one facial expression, but at least it is a pretty decent one and a good representation of Sherlock as a whole. As for the well-meaning and bumbling Dr. Watson, he fares better on the accessories front. Got a really nicely printed torso and one facial expression. A slightly tanned skin tone showing that he's just back from his service abroad. And whilst he also has no leg printing, there is some decent printing to the back of the torso too. Now that brings us on to this minifigure, which is supposedly Irene Adler. Overall, done pretty well with some really nice printing to the front, although I don't like the gap that we have between the top of the torso and the front of the dress. That is a little bit more irritating. Nonetheless, all the colours, the printing, the detailing on there, that is super. If we spin her around, that also continues onto the back as well. Now, LEGO have given her this rather big afro hairpiece. It's certainly quite chunky, you can see here. The benefit being that she can now have two facial expressions. So one on the back where she's definitely not too happy about what's going on, and then the more smiley side. Because of the colour that they've made her here, it's not in keeping with the source material. The diversity and representation that LEGO does is, of course, brilliant. Whether it was necessary here, I'm not so sure. I think they could, in this particular instance, have kept it just closer to the source material, but that's certainly no reason not to buy it. And overall, still a really nicely detailed minifig. Now, it's actually our newspaper boy that is one of my favourites. I think that they've done him splendidly. You've obviously got the accessory of the newspaper which he's holding in his little satchel. And beneath that, the really nicely printed detailing of his scarf over the little braces that are holding up his trousers, although they look like they're falling down here. I've not clicked him together properly, so apologies for that. Around the back, also got some extra printing as well, which looks nice. Now, removing the hat and hair piece, which are one moulded piece together, does reveal a second facial expression. He's definitely sadder there. He's not been selling enough of his newspapers, but turn him round and he's certainly a little bit more pleased. Clearly met his quota and can afford to eat that day, as opposed to the more Oliver look. Please, sir, can I have some more, sir? Now that brings us on to Jim Moriarty. And I think arguably the best printing here, certainly where the face is concerned. You've got all the brilliant stubbling that they've done around it, the monocle, the sort of kind of deranged grin that he's got going on, the really nice printing to the front of the torso as well. If we spin him round, you've got the wonderful cape. This really is a very nice part of the minifig. Sadly, none on the legs again. Also, he does come with just the one facial expression, as you just have the bowler hat as the accessory, not a hairpiece. But at least that facial expression that we do get is really super. So, whilst our LEGO Book Nook is rather plain on the sides, the front facade is certainly detailed, and it comes with some pretty decent minifigures with it too. How then will Pantasy stack up? Well, we shall begin with the smaller of the sets. This one being based not on the exterior of 221B Baker Street, but a beautifully detailed interior, absolutely filled to the brim with lots of little accessories. Now, if you're after a smaller set that's not going to take up a lot of space, but is going to be able to beautifully focus in on some of the superb features that make up Baker Street, this really is an incredible contender. I'm pretty much blown away by everything that is jam-packed in here. The newspapers, the envelopes, they are all printed elements, not stickers. Everything in here comes printed, even down to the little boxes of tea, which we see on the inside. Clearly, there has been a painstaking level of thought put into the whole layout of this and what can really fill it to bring Sherlock's world to life. I mean, I love the map and little features like Scaramanga's golden gun up there. Also some dog hair. Sorry about that. I do have a lot of dogs, so unfortunately as much brushing or hoovering as I do, there's always going to be some that ends up on these sets. Thankfully, it doesn't detract from how awesome the set is as a whole. Now, it is designed to be 3 separate parts, so we will look at each of those individually, beginning with our kitchen/experiment room here, where Dr. Watson's just probably trying to have a chicken leg and Sherlock's doing all sorts of weird experimentation to it. But look at all of the lovely little accessories that are filled with this. I mean, even down to the sort of plush way that the chair's been put together, and you can position those or angle them however you want because it's just on the one stud. Now, I've got to say, I am really impressed with the amount of different things that Pantasy have put in here. Obviously, LEGO's Book Nook can't be anything like this. It would be unfair to say so, but if they did something like this, I'd question that they'd go to this level of detailing. Every angle that you look at it from is brilliant. I haven't clipped that down just there, but it's easy enough to put into place. I have heard some people saying that the sort of knockoff Lego either doesn't have the same clutch power or it's got too much. And honestly, I didn't find that at all. I found working with these bricks, the feel of them, the way they connect, identical to how Legos are. There genuinely wasn't a difference in my opinion. What I do think is a difference is just how much we are getting in such a small space, and yet it's really well thought through in how it's been designed, from the little cupboards that we've got here through to all the utensils beneath. Everything is functional, it all works, and it's just fantastically put together. Now, there aren't enough exposed studs, I don't think, to stand your minifigures, but if you remove some of the extra envelopes or newspapers that you have around, then of course you could put your minifigures on there and stand them in place. So this is a pretty outstanding kitchen, and also exactly the sort of place you'd expect to find a Mrs. Hudson figure, one that we will be taking a look at in a minute. For now though, we will turn our attention to the main living area for where Sherlock and Watson do all of their main deductions, and again, pretty blown away by the amount of accessories you get with this. The little hat and hat stand, and then of course the doorway that just goes through into the kitchen area when you have this clipped together. Round the other side, you've got Sherlock's violin at the back, the different ornaments. I just really have to stress how impressed I am with the amount of printed elements that come in this. All the little picture on the wall, again, the newspapers and the map or the song sheet, it's all printed. And that's just something that we don't get with actual Lego sets, at least not in this level of volume. And even the whiskey cases down at the back there, sorry, the whiskey bottles, again, also printing. And that attention is superb, really is setting this apart for me. Now, the overall layout is brilliantly spaced. It's beautiful in its colours, like the gold and reds of the rug, and just the plushness of Sherlock and Watson's armchairs. Then you spin it around, and okay, there's not a huge amount of detailing on the exterior, but at least it is all sort of polished and finished. It looks nice. If you do happen to see it from this side angle or the back, it's going to still look really good. So at least they have given it that finish, and not just thought, oh, well, we're not going to bother to make the back look good because nobody's going to see it from that angle. Now, if we look down here, it connects on the right-hand side with the little bracket pieces as opposed to the Technic pins that you have on the left. And that brings us over to this side. And the exterior portion of this is even nicer. You've got the wonderful little foliage on the outside and the beautiful window box, which is a really nice touch. And again, otherwise it's bringing that color scheme through. Then on the interior here, guess what? More printed pieces showing it off. Little amusing things like the earphones on the deer head, and all of the furniture in here, whether it's the couch or the writing desk and the chair, they're really nicely put together as well. There's nothing flimsy about them. Because it's connected by one stud, you can sort of position it into different places, but it's not loose, it's not going to fall out. So if you're wondering about what the quality is like on a set like this, I think it's absolutely brilliant. Now, with that in mind, it does bring us on to Pantasy's version of the figures that come with this set, slightly different in their shaping to the minifigures that we have. The level of printing detail is exceptional. I mean, just look at the torso, also comes with the arm printing. That then continues onto the legs, not just on the front, but also on the sides as well. And that is something that we very rarely see with Lego. Now, whether that level, quality level of the printing is up to the same standard is something we'll explore when I put them side by side in a minute. But at least the amount of printing that has been put across this figure truly is outstanding. Spinning him round onto the back, that also continues on the torso and legs as well. Unfortunately, it does reveal the first and major flaw with this figure. So unlike the Lego version, this does come with two facial expressions. Unfortunately, because of the way that the hat's been designed, you can see that from the back, and that's something which really doesn't look good, I don't think. So on the one hand, yeah, cool, okay, we get two facial expressions, but it doesn't work when you don't have a hairpiece to cover them. He also looks a little bit deranged in this one, so maybe he's definitely been taking some of his special substances when he's going to be looking like this. However, on the other side, you've got the more normal facial expression. I don't think that the quality of the printing on the face is as good as Lego's version, but let's look at them side by side. So first, immediately obvious things to me are the deerstalker that Lego has given their Sherlock, much better than the hat that Pantasy has done, and also you get the cape as well, which is a nice touch. However, the printing when it comes to the bodies, I think I would have to just about give to Pantasy, although I prefer the way that the Sherlock torso on Lego's version looks for the front. The fact that we have all that extra printing down onto the legs and also on the arms of Pantasy's version is really impressive. Now, unfortunately, round at the back, I don't like the Pantasy one because of that facial expression being exposed, so Lego wins there. Overall then, between the two, let's be honest, if you are a minifig collector, you're going to want Lego's version of Sherlock Holmes. There's no doubt about that. I know that I do. However, what Pantasy has given us here as a viable alternative, I think is really strong. And if nothing else, proves that Lego, if they actually wanted to, could give us more printing around different areas of the minifigures. Unfortunately, they just cheap out a little bit. We'll switch now, though, over to Pantasy's version of Dr. Watson, and there's some things I really like and others I'm not so sure about. For a start, why has he got a crowbar instead of a normal cane? That's certainly a bit questionable, as is his extremely bright blonde hair. Trying to set that aside, though, the actual printing on the front of this is brilliant. Just look at the printing on the legs and even down to the little laces on the front of his feet. Again, why can't Lego bother to put in those extra details that just add so much more to these figures? I mean, true, round the back, there's only a tiny little bit of printing up around the collar line, and otherwise it is pretty bland. But just all that printing on the front, it is so super. I don't particularly like the hair colour. Maybe that's just me. Let me know what you think. Now, bringing in Lego's version of Dr. Watson, it's really nice to have the bowler hat, obviously slightly different skin tone colour because he's just come back from being abroad, so that's neither here nor there. The quality of the torso printing on the front, I prefer on Legos, in all honesty. However, for Pantasy, because we then have a pretty decent torso matched up with the extra leg printing, that is a really good contender. Just not sure about the hairpiece. Now, that brings me on to Mrs. Hudson, and this was a glaring admission from Lego set. She's such a key character, excluding her from the book Nook is a bit of an insult, quite frankly. So, thankfully, it's Pantasy to the rescue with this exceptionally detailed version that we have here. Got some wonderful printing, both around the rear and also on the front. She also has a couple of different facial expressions beneath the nice hairpiece they've given her. One definitely more happy, probably when Sherlock is out, and then the other not quite so pleased, but still certainly not too mean. Comes with a nice little teapot accessory, great hairpiece, and just the overall level of printing on her, I think, is super. So this is a standout figure. But then we have another direct comparison, Jim Moriarty from Pantasy's version. Some things I prefer and others not so much. Look, first of all, again, the fact that we've got printing down on the feet and the legs, that's super. The actual level of detailing that is put on the torso, probably not up to Lego standards, but we'll look at them side by side again in a minute. As for the face, I love the expression. The printing quality is great. The hairpiece is super, especially the sort of receding hairline that we have on here. I think they've done that brilliantly. Now, okay, around the back, there's not really any printing, just up around the collar line again, so that bit of a missed opportunity perhaps, but nothing really to complain about. If you remove the hairpiece, we then have a couple of facial expressions. That one extremely angry. He's probably just about to go over the Reichenbach Falls with Sherlock with that expression. But then I love this sort of sneering, smirking grimace. In fact, I prefer the facial expression on Pantasy to Legos, and that's saying a lot. I mean, admittedly, all the stubbling that is on Legos, that is great. Really does elevate it a lot. However, I think it's just the sort of way that they've done the mouth on the Pantasy version, and also the expression around the eyes, that is just brilliant. Really does look like he's smirking. So obviously having the cape on Lego's version, that is awesome. The printing quality on the torso, probably better in all fairness. However, having the leg printing on the Pantasy version and that brilliant two facial expressions as opposed to just one on Legos really makes this a very strong contender. I think they've done a super job with this figure, so well done, Pantasy. And that then brings us to the big one, Pantasy's modularized version of 221B Baker Street. Now, the sheer size of this thing for the price is incredible value for money. And first of all, I just want to say I love that we've got 221B on the door and also a properly spaced Baker Street on a printed tile, not a sticker. If Pantasy can manage it properly spaced, then there's no reason that Lego shouldn't have been able to do that as well. Taking a look around the outside first, it's just absolutely crammed with detailing. The greebling on it is wonderful, as indeed are the colours. And more dog hairs again. Sorry about that. But the chimney stack that we have here, the drain pipe, this sort of detailing again is something that you fully expect to get in normal Lego modulars. And what they've managed to put here is something that is not going to look out of place at all if you want to put it alongside the likes of Lego's icon sets. It's not plain around the rear either, with extra little features such as the doorway that you can open, a hidden section in the wall that reveals a treasure chest and map. Very piratey indeed, and a nice added little feature for extra intrigue while you're wanting to play with this. And then you've also got the little sort of shutter up here, which you can open up to take a peek in on the inside. But we'll take a proper look at those in a minute. Coming around the other side again, you can see the couple of Technit pins down there at the bottom where you can connect this up with other modulars if you so wish. And I really don't see any reason why you wouldn't. It's good enough to go alongside them. And then up on the roof, you've also got these skylights, which are another really nice detail to put in. And then all the greebling around the top coming across here and onto the chimney stack. It's just exceptional. I mean, if you are a true Sherlockian fan, you couldn't really ask for much more than this in terms of a detailed building to be able to represent it. Now, there is something to note down here in terms of this section, because you have the option of having a Sherlock Holmes sticker. Now, it is a sticker, it is not printed, and I think that's a really good decision, because then you don't need to choose to have it on there if you don't like it. I don't think it needs to say Sherlock Holmes in there. It's not going to be the real thing that it says. If anything, it should have the name of the cafe. So maybe that's a slight downside, but at least it is a sticker, so you can choose whether or not you wish to apply it. And that's the important thing, because pretty much everything else, almost everything else in this whole set is printed. So, time to have a look on the inside, and first things first, the roof can of course be easily removed. This is a fully modularized building as you would expect it to be. It's just connected in the normal way with a couple of studs in each corner, as you'd expect from Lego modulars if you've put those together before. And the attention to detail that we have inside here is simply superb. You've got the small neatness of Watson's room as opposed to the sheer disarray of Sherlock's bedroom, where once again everything is just strewn all over the floor. And it's exceptional what they've done here. You know, quite frankly, if they'd put half as much in here, it would have been plenty. But the fact that they've gone to such extreme lengths to, have the little pictures on the wall, the different types of magazines and everything that you have in here, it's incredible value for money. I mean, even the pictures that you have on the back, again, these aren't stickers, they're printed elements. And that continues through into the stairwell as well, and the little portraits that you have on the wall there. So everything in here does feel like a fully hustling, bustling living area that Sherlock and Watson carry out their days in. And just consider for 1 second the difference between the sort of map that Lego did as opposed to the fully textured, detailed clue board that we have here. Now though, moving on down to the next level, we come to the main living quarters of Sherlock and Watson, where they do their deducing and interview clients. This is sort of a more condensed version of what we were just looking at in that other set. You've got the small kitchen experimentation room there, as opposed to Pantasy's other version. But of course, they couldn't have it as big in this modularized setup. It still is pretty cool in what you get. Lots of little utensils, the cupcake, etc. You've got the opening cupboard, so they haven't cheaped out in any way on that. And then for the living room, again, it's just filled with lots of different accessories. I've mentioned printed elements a lot. The mirror that we have here is a sticker, but it's exceptionally used, and I really like the reflection that it actually manages to capture. Coming round on the other side, you've got the fireplace again with some nice little references to Conan Doyle's stories. A couple of really nice plush chairs that you can sit the figures in if you wish to. And then round on the other side, you've got the bullet holes in the wall that Sherlock shoots. The sofa, which doesn't have studs on, so you can't sit them on it, but at least it does look pretty nice. And for all the polished surfaces, some nice exposed studs to stand the figures on as well, if you so wish. Now, this is where we had that flap from earlier that you can Take a look inside now, it's a little bit lighter, you can see in there better. So this floor is also wonderfully detailed, one you could come back to time and time again after having built it to re-enjoy all the little features inside. And then removing that, it brings us down to the bottom level, starting with the entrance corridor where you come in from the outside into 221B Baker Street. And got some more printed elements on the wall there, and the little hat stand and the nice staircase you can go up. And then, of course, we have this wonderfully detailed cafe. I thought this looked good enough from the outside with a little seating area, but when you come in, it is awesome. I mean, it's definitely London prices, you can see from the menu board. What it doesn't cheap out on is all of the equipment that you have here, and the little ketchups and mustards and the cups, etc. There's a couple of more stickered pieces here for the mirrors, but they lend so much to it. I don't mind that they're stickers at all. They really are a good choice to have included. The flooring in this is brilliant. I would have liked a couple of them to have had studs on so that we could have actually put some minifigures standing around here, but that's a very small thing. Otherwise, every part of this is just exceptionally thought through. I really am so impressed with this. It's one of the best modulars that I've come across, and the fact that it's for Sherlock Holmes makes this just so enjoyable to own. I know it takes up a bit more space, but the value for money on this compared to what Lego would price for something comparatively is simply staggering. So I love this set. It's not devoid of figures either, so it's time that we take a look at what comes with this. And no, these are not Funko Pops. These are in fact the little figures that we have come with this modular version of the set. So this is Sherlock Holmes that we have here, and the level of printing that's gone on around this is really great as well. Not just on the torso, but on the arms and the legs. And I really quite like the facial expression. Now, full disclosure, I wasn't expecting to like this at all. When I saw the pictures of them, I thought that they were going to be pretty tacky, but actually the look and feel of it is pretty nice, and it's quirky, it's different. I do quite enjoy it. I'm not suggesting for a moment that it's going to replace an official minifigure, but as something that is different, I think they've done this exceptionally well, and I'm really impressed with the way that it looks. And I honestly wasn't expecting to, so that is a pleasant surprise. I mean, also consider these aren't the main attraction. Obviously, the building is this brilliant building. These are just an aside, so quite frankly, if you don't like them, then you don't need to have them, but give them a chance, because actually, this is really quite good and refreshingly different. Watson, in particular, I find very well done. Being not hugely happy with either the official minifigure or the Pantasy version, this is absolutely fantastic. I love all of the printing on him. The detailing of his waistcoat down into the trousers is absolutely phenomenal. And I really like his facial expression too. I think that's great. Just overall, such a superb little thing. They have done a really nice job with it. And they didn't have to. They could have just gone purely with the building. It's good enough. So having these chucked in as well, that's pretty good going. Now, we also get one of Mrs. Hudson, and even the little detailing like the fingers on the hands are a super touch. And then you've got the printing down onto her shoes, the beautiful pinny and the necklace. And again, the facial expression is really awesome, as is the big hairpiece too. So I want you to let me know what you think of these down in the comments. However, just keep in mind, I wasn't expecting to like them at all. It's only when I had them in hand and could actually see them in person that I was quite impressed. Another bonus, if you do like them, is that you get Inspector Lestrade, the only iteration that we have of him, with his brilliant moustache and sideburns and the lovely printing on his jacket, even down to the little buttons on his sleeves there. And then as you twist him round, you've got printing on the legs, even the little pockets on his backside, which are pretty cool. I know that these aren't everybody's cup of tea, but I applaud Pantasy for doing it. And the fact that they've given these such great detailing is super. Just look at the feather in Moriarty's top hat. And again, just the brilliant facial expression and the superb printing around the torso. At a time where everything, certainly Lego-wise, seems to be getting more and more expensive, I appreciate Pantasy having bothered to go to this level of detailing on these as well. Of course, that brings us on to our horse and carriage. We mustn't forget this. And first of all, we have our little horsey. over here, which I feel stands up to any of Lego's versions, it has to be said. Again, the quality of printing on that, it's not faded or anything at all. That's super. And then the carriage itself, wonderful shaping and texture that it's got to it. I really like the little lanterns that it has on the front. Now, if you push it backwards and forwards lightly, only the rear wheels move, but if you just apply a little bit of pressure, then the front ones do as well. So that's just a traction thing and the surface that you'll have it on. So there you have it, 3 extremely different sets. One that is great for smaller displays, one that is an absolutely epic and incredible modular build, and another which, if you're a fan of book nooks, certainly scratches that itch. What would I suggest overall? Well, I have to say that if space is a bit of a premium and you're just looking for a cheaper set which is going to really capture superb details for the interior of Baker Street, this one from Pantasy is an absolute must. In fact, it's a bit of a no-brainer. The figures are pretty decent, not as good overall probably as the official Lego counterparts, but there's so much more detail going on for this set in general that I think it is exceptional. As for Lego itself, whilst I don't think that all of the minifigures have been done as well as they could have been, and it certainly has some downsides in the way that it's been built, the overall displayability factor and enjoyment it will give to Sherlock Holmes fans make it a very good one to consider. However, the star of the show really is, for me, this spectacular modular by Pantasy. Incredible on the exterior, wonderful on the interior. Whether you like the figures that come with it or not is frankly irrelevant. The horse and carriage are also an awesome addition. It is an absolutely standout build. Now, it's also Prime Day on Amazon at the moment, and you can get a huge discount off of these already really good value Pantasy sets. And if you use the affiliate links in the description below, you can also get an extra discount off of them for a limited time. That's on top of the Prime Day deals. So if you want them, don't miss out. And of course, I'll also put the link to the Lego version in the description as well. I'm very pleased to have it, particularly the minifigures, but it is the quality of these Pantasy sets that has really taken me by surprise. And certainly as far as the modular is concerned, I am super sold. It is incredible. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to seeing you next time round.